Hello everyone, I'm making this video to tell you how to get every single ending in Thronebreaker The Witcher Tales. Obviously there will be spoilers, so be careful. Okay, first off, the game has one major ending. However, within it, there can be many variations, which I will be discussing here. The developers have said that there are, was it 20 or so different ending states? Meaning 20 possible combinations of all the variations that I've just mentioned. And if I happen to miss anything, please let me know in the comments below. Alright, starting with the endings for the main characters. Let's have a look at Villem first, Meve's son. There are 3 outcomes for him, and all 3 depend on your choice during your meeting in Rivia. So after he presents the terms of his surrender, you'll get to make 3 choices. First, you can decide to capture him. That will lead to his bad ending, where he ends up rotting and dying in a cell.
Villem, Meve never forgave him his betrayal. Left to rot in Rivia's dungeon, his strength and spirit waned until he quietly expired. He was buried in secret, no speeches, no honors. His tomb, a plain one, of roughly hewn stone.
Second, you can agree to his terms and allow him to join you. Doing this will make him part of your party, no pun intended, and allow you to talk to him some more. He can also help you in a couple of side quests before the ending of the game. Now, in the actual ending, this will lead to him surviving, becoming Meve's successor and ruling alongside her.
Villem, he worked hard to regain his mother's trust and respect, took on many daring missions regardless of the risks. The lad who Nilfgaard had wielded as a tool now sowed terror along its borders, and appeared a successor most worthy of Meve. And Meve? As I said, she ruled with an iron hand, not fist, and with her son's unwavering support. She could now trust him again. A great victory, greater even than Rivia's liberation.
Finally, the third option is to disagree and refuse his terms, in which case you part as enemies and he does not join you. In the end, however, he will turn against Nilfgaard and help Meve's forces enter Rivia Castle, sadly dying in the process. This leads to an ending where he's buried with honors and remembered as a hero.
Villem, a pawn, a tool in others' hands. Most, if not all, had seen him thus. Yet in the end, he proved his worth soundly. Though he'd started the war a traitor, he perished in the fray a hero, and would be remembered as such.
There's actually one more consequence of this third option. It is the only way to ensure that both Gascon and Reynard survive. The first 2 choices will always lead to one of the 2 dying. And so that's it for Villem, and speaking of Gascon and Reynard, let's have a look at their endings. Starting with Gascon, there are 3 variations for him. If you don't choose option 3 for Villem and send Gascon to infiltrate the castle, he will die. There are 2 different epilogues for his death. The first one, if you either refuse to rebuild his family crypt, or if you simply skip the quest altogether. And the second, as you may be guessing, is if you do rebuild it.
Meve spared no expense in bidding Gascon farewell. His peer lords themselves bore the casket, and soldiers in parade dress beat the funeral drums. The Duke of Dogs, a marauder, was interred with honors befitting the truest of royals. Gascon was buried with honors of the most refined yet mournful sort. His peer lords themselves bore the casket, soldiers in parade dress beat the funeral drums, and a new stone figure appeared beside the Brossard family vault, the very pointer from their crest, a ducal crown upon its head.
His final ending is the one where he survives. To get it, either don't send him to infiltrate the castle, or go for the ending where Villem is remembered as a hero, and then you can send Gascon knowing that he'll survive. To my knowledge, if he survives, he always ends up vanishing eventually.
Having settled in Rivia, Gascon embarked on a life worthy of his noble origins. In doublet and ruff, he looked to his ample fields and livestock in daytime, attended banquets and feasts come the eve. And then one night, he grabbed his bow and quiver, saddled his favorite mount, and disappeared without a trace.
Okay, moving on to Reynard. He will live or die under the exact same conditions as Gascon. He dies if sent to infiltrate the castle and Villem isn't there to take the hit for him. If he dies, he is buried with the greatest of honors, and Meve mourns his loss.
Reynard was buried at Rivia Castle in the chapel. Laid alongside dukes and kings, droves of his soldiers bid him farewell. Fresh flowers appeared on his tomb each day. Thanks to whom, you might ask? I'd venture to say, you know.
If he survives, you'll have to speak to him during the free roam section after defeating General Ebdahi. In that conversation, you'll be able to initiate a romance between Meve and Reynard, and if you decide to do so, you'll get an ending where he rules together with Meve as her right hand, and something much, much more, as they say.
And Meve? As I said, she ruled with an iron hand, not fist. Reynard ever at her side, tempering, supportive. No longer a general and trusted advisor, he had to the Queen become something more. Much, much more.
Here are two curious facts about this ending for Reynard. One, it supersedes the ending where Meve and Villem rule together. So if you do everything such that Meve is supposed to rule with Villem, and she's also supposed to rule with Reynard, she will end up with Reynard. And the second thing, if you look really close at Meve's lips, yes, I did look real close at her lips, during the endings, you will see that she has a slight smile when ending up with Reynard, while her expression with Villem is neutral, implying that perhaps having Reynard at her side is the best ending for her. And speaking of Meve, let's now talk about her endings. She's the only character who has two sets of variations. Makes sense, I suppose, since she's the main character. Right, so the endings mention how she continues ruling the kingdoms and how she is remembered in the eyes of Nilfgaard. Let's talk about the ruling first, as we have already indirectly mentioned 2 out of the 3 variants, the first one with Villem and the second one with Reynard. The third one happens if they're both dead. So to get it, make sure Villem is rotting in a cell and Reynard dies infiltrating the castle. Did I just say Reynard? Anyway, so when you get this ending, she ends up being alone on the throne, arguably becoming the worst possible version of herself. You know, her people fearing her and such.
And Meve? As I said, she ruled with an iron hand, not fist. Ever alone, ever strong, dousing dissent with commanding gestures. She was beloved, I've no doubt. Yet her subjects always breathed easier when her gaze moved on from them to someone else. And now, if you'd allow me...
Course!
This is also seen in her expression, which, as I said, is a smile with Reynard, neutral with Villem, and she has a bit of a frown on her face when she's alone. And the second set of variations for Meve, like I mentioned, is the way Nilfgaard remembers her. Here we have 2 possibilities. The tenacious one, basically as the honorable queen, and the bloodthirsty one. This one needs no clarification, I suppose. Now, the way you get these endings is a little less obvious, because they depend on a large amount of choices you can make throughout the story, some of which are skippable as well. Here, it all depends on the way you treat your enemy, meaning Nilfgaard, throughout the game. So, be mean to them, kill their emissary, refuse to ransom their general, attack them when you can avoid fighting, kill their ambassador in Mahakam, and so on and so forth, and you'll be remembered as the bloodthirsty one. On the other hand, spare the emissary, ransom the general, avoid fighting when possible, respect Mahakams, or Mahakam. Sometimes they say it Mahakam, and other times they say it Mahakam, so I don't know. So respect the neutrality of that dwarven land, and you'll be remembered as the tenacious one.
Though Nilfgaard owed its defeat chiefly to Meve, in the Empire her name was uttered with utmost respect. Returning soldiers spoke in awed tones of her courage and generosity, referring to her as Gvedin, the tenacious one. As news of the Nordling victory filtered south, Nilfgaard's inhabitants greeted it with disbelief. Returning Imperial soldiers told stories of Lyria's cruel queen, who murdered prisoners and sullied sacred laws. They referred to her as Gvaeldead, the bloodthirsty one.
Okay, what is left now is the part about non-humans. This one, like the previous, is also composed of a variety of choices, and this time it's all about how you treat non-humans on your journey. One important thing though, as far as I can tell from my several walkthroughs at least, this ending only looks at the choices you make regarding civilian non-humans. So what you do with Eldain or the Scoia'tael you meet right before the end, for example, does not matter. Once again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it doesn't. What I think only matters is whether or not you help civilian non-humans that are about to be killed or punished or kicked out of towns for some reason throughout the story. So if you act in favor of them, you'll get a more hopeful epilogue for the non-humans, and if you do the opposite, well, the opposite occurs.
Once the Scoia'tael had withdrawn from the northern realms, non-rebel elves and dwarves emerged from the woods. Though they returned to their homes in human communities, they lived in fear of their neighbors, aware that the next massacre would eventually come. With the advent of peace, tensions waned. Lyria's and Rivia's disparate races seemed to live harmoniously, side by side. The Queen pressed for new laws aimed at curbing oppression. They were a step towards more enlightened rule, yet sadly were habitually broken.
Right, I suppose I can mention some of your companions as well. Even though they're not part of the ending slides, they're still important, so let's talk about them. What comes to mind immediately is how to keep Sir Ake in your party, and that's a difficult task. There are probably 5, if not more, instances where during side quests he will dislike your choice and leave instantly. In fact, there is even a side quest that you can do in the wrong way before recruiting him, and as soon as you recruit him, you're like, you did that thing wrong, so I'm gone, goodbye. So how do you keep him? Well, generally, you have to be good to people, you have to slay all monsters you meet, you must not lie, and you must not steal. I think that's enough. The second hardest one to keep is probably Rayla, Black Rayla. She has a fetish for killing Scoia'tael, so if you're nice and merciful to them, she'll leave on her own. That happens as soon as you reach Mahakam. If she stays, however, during the Drekthag quest, I keep wanting to say Drekthar, I believe it's that quest, she'll murder a whole bunch of ex-Scoia'tael dwarves, and if you want to keep her, you must decide not to kick her out, though I don't think you can keep Isbel in your party if Rayla stays after this point. Reynard and Gascon will return even if you kick one of them or both of them in Isgith, so don't worry about them. Barnabas can leave, but his departure is on good terms. He stays behind to help innovate a town, and that's potentially a good ending for him. Or you can decide not to let him stay in that town and keep him till the end. Okay, next up is Gabor. He will leave if you kick non-humans out of a town in Rivia, and there may be other cases where anti-non-human choices might cause him to leave as well. So basically be pro-non-human if you want to keep him. And also, if you tell the Dwarven King the truth about what Gabor's house did, he will die. So you should not reveal the truth. And I think that doesn't cause Sir Ake to leave as well. And besides, I don't think Sir Ake is there to hear what you say anyway. Right, I think that was all. Oh, a curious thing I didn't mention about Reynard, and I still think this might be a bug. It is that Reynard, if you have him alive, but without initiating the romance with Meve, does not have a mention in the ending. He is completely left out. I assume there had to be an ending for him where he's just not with Meve and he continues being a general or something. But at least at the time where I played this game, such ending did not exist. So I'm left wondering. And that is it. I hope this video was helpful. If I missed anything or got anything wrong, feel free to correct me down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like and perhaps enabling notifications for my channel. Thank you very much for watching, good luck on your way to getting the ending you desire in Thronebreaker, and until the next one, stay tuned and be good.